Welcome to tonight's live stream. I'm going to get started in a minute. Okay. I'm going to take a minute to let everybody know what the stream is going on. Be right back in a second. Yeah, T-Mac, I was just finished watching Ringo's live stream, and it was a really good live stream. He was talking about these independent women. Very, very well done stream. And I'm going to get into my show in about a minute. Just wanted to take a minute to let everybody get in the room before I start, the show. So I'm going to go a little slower today than I usually go. Usually I just go right into my material, but today I'm going to go a little bit slower. So, I got some of the SJS Direct 2021 books available for pre-order and on the Kindle. John Haynes Taking Care of Business is now available on the Kindle right now, so you can pre-order John Haynes. Pre-order John Haynes Taking Care of Business right now, and also have this Revenge of the Cyber Goddess is now available for pre-order on Kindle. So the first two books of the SJS Direct 2021 catalog are now available on the Kindle for pre-order, and you can pick those up by clicking the links in the chat. So I'm going to do a video on those soon, but I wanted everybody here to know that the books have been edited, they're uploaded to KDP, and I have a fun surprise inside of that ISIS Revenge of the Cyber Goddess for everyone that pays homage to Jet's Beauty of the Week. So I'm going to get started in a minute now that everybody's here. And tonight's live stream, I'm going to go into a men's issues topic from my book, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance. And I'm going to go in depth on a subject that is a major chapter in Stop Simping, and that chapter has to do with the thirsty guy. So you can get Stop Simping on Amazon and take it back in Kindle format. But that's what tonight's topic is going to be. We are going to be talking about Stop Simping. I can't really do anything about the audio. That's YouTube at it again. So, but If you guys can hear me, I'm just going to try to keep going, but we're going to be talking about the thirsty guy. And the thirsty guy, as I stated in the Stop Simping Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance, is a guy with absolutely no control over his emotions. And your thirsty guy, what makes him thirsty is that he's really eager to get the attention of a woman, and he's so out of control with his emotions, he really doesn't understand how his behavior is being seen by everyone out here, both men and women. Now, your thirsty guy, what makes him become so thirsty usually has to do with the way he was raised, and usually where the main root of a thirsty guy usually is a single mother household, or a household where he has no real male figures around him to model manhood for him. So your thirsty guy, he is usually a guy who grew up in an environment where he was seeing lots of people who grew up learning how to be emotional, and he saw emotional behavior as his model. So whenever he's in a social situation, he doesn't really know how to conduct himself the way a man who's been raised around other men know how to carry and conduct themselves. So he conducts himself in the way just like a woman. And because he doesn't really understand anything about the concepts of boundaries, discipline, or self-control, what happens to the thirsty guy is he thinks that he can just act on his emotions and he can just go out here and this would be a good look for him. So your thirsty guy, he's out here, he has no control over his emotions, and whenever he sees a woman that he likes, what he does is he starts to just act on whatever impulses he has. So if a thirsty guy sees a woman he likes walking down the street, he's the one who will go out here and make a cat call towards that woman. And he'll make that cat call and think that this is an appropriate behavior because he wants to get her attention. But what he doesn't understand is that when he does this, he violates a lot of unwritten social rules, and he also makes himself look like a complete idiot. Because when you're a thirsty guy, all you're doing is acting on your feelings, and you're not understanding how your behavior reflects out here. And this is one of the things that the thirsty guy never really learns because he doesn't have other men around to sit down and talk to him, or a father to sit down and talk to him about how a man carries himself. So he'll sit there and be thinking, oh, I'm making these cat calls, I'm yelling out loud, but he doesn't understand that when he does this, he really shows people, one, that he has no real discipline or self-control, and two, he's showing every man out here that he's weak, and he's also showing women out here that he is a weak man. Because when you have a guy out here and he's making a cat call, he's really not putting up a good look out here to a lot of these women out here, and he's even making a worse picture for himself in the social circles of men, because your women out here, they look at this guy and they're looking for a guy to be a leader. They're looking for a guy who has discipline and self-control. And a guy who goes out here and he's all emotional, like a thirsty guy, that's not somebody she wants to consider for any sort of relationship, because this guy already shows you that he has no discipline, no self-control, and he does not respect boundaries. Moreover, he does not respect the unwritten social rules as related to social etiquette, because he's out here going out here just making comments about how somebody looks without even thinking about how his approach is going to come across. So he's just coming out here making all sorts of bawdy and crass comments and thinking that this will get him some attention. But what he doesn't understand is there's good attention and there's bad attention, and he's getting bad attention from both men and women. The women see him as somebody that they don't really respect, and your men don't see him as somebody they respect either, because he's not following the unwritten social rules for how a man is supposed to conduct himself. Because a man, when he's out here, he has to have his discipline and self-control on, because when he has discipline and self-control, it shows that he's a man that everybody needs to look out for and he needs to respect. So a man understands the intangible of his respect is important, and he needs to go out here and present himself in a respectable way. But your thirsty guy, he doesn't understand about the whole concept of face and how a man is supposed to present himself in a situation where he puts on a good face. He thinks he can participate in any impulsive behavior and he can just go and do this and there's no real consequences to it. But he doesn't understand that he's making mistakes that are going to embarrass him in social situations and make it where both men and women really don't want anything to do with him, because he shows he has no discipline and he has no self-control. Now, your thirsty guy, he has, in addition to his problems with control over his emotions, he just has a problem with talking too much. Now, your thirsty guy, whenever he gets in the presence of a woman he likes to run his mouth in a lot of cases. So your thirsty guy, he'll be all keyed up on his emotions. And as he's keyed up on his emotions and nervous and anxious, he starts talking. And when he starts talking out here, what happens to him is he starts saying things he should not say. So you'll have a guy out here, your thirsty guy, he'll sit up here, he'll go out here and start talking to said woman, and he'll just start letting anything run out of his mouth. And one of the mistakes that your thirsty guy makes as he's talking to women is he starts to give them too much information. So your thirsty guy, he sits there, and as he's talking too much, he starts revealing things about himself that he really shouldn't be talking about. So your thirsty guy, he's thinking that he's going to impress said woman by making all of these statements about how much money he has and how expensive clothes he has. But what he does is he's leaving himself vulnerable for predators. Now, the other big mistake that your thirsty guy makes early on is telling a woman that he likes her. And this is one of the worst mistakes a thirsty guy could ever make, because when a woman reads this guy's emotional state and his body language, she can just see the weakness. And when a guy goes out here and tells a woman out front that he likes her like that, it just leaves him wide open with a target straight on his chest. So your thirsty guy, he will sit there and again, he'll say, I like you up front, like a Steve Urkel does to a Laura Winslow. And he will think that that will be something that impresses her because it will be a statement of strength. But what it does is it just shows her how weak he is. And he sits there and tells her this up front. And then what happens is she then looks at him and goes, that's a weak dude. And he's out here talking about something, telling me that he likes me. And he's doing this right off the jump. And he hasn't even initiated any conversation. He hasn't really done anything out front. I mean, he hasn't really taken a minute to really listen to this woman to find out what she's like or to study her body language or facial expressions. He just runs up and says this with all full of eagerness and emotion. And it's that eagerness and emotion that makes her look at this dude and go, this is a weak dude. And this is not a guy I really would want to consider for any sort of relationship. So this is what your thirsty guy does. And he's thinking that because he's coming out here and just saying what he's going to come out here and says this, it's going to be positive, but it's not seen as positive because that he's put all the cards on the table early on. So when you put all your cards on the table early on, what happens with the thirsty guy is he puts all these cards on the table, and what happens is the woman sees all of the aces on the table. She builds herself up a nice hand and then plays a hand where she wins. And she's winning because the thirsty guy talked too much. He told her everything about her, and he told her that he liked her. So he put everything on the table, and he didn't understand that when it comes down to women out here, you have to go out here, and we've got a troll in the, so we're just gonna get rid of this guy. So he's gonna put all his cards on the table, and what's gonna happen is she's gonna play that hand and make a complete fool out of this guy. So that's what your thirsty guy does. And your thirsty guy, he's thinking that he's doing the right thing, but he doesn't understand that there needs to be a little bit of mystery and a little bit of intrigue as related to you. You just don't come out here and put all your cards on the table, because if you put all your cards on the table, then the woman knows just as much as you do about yourself. That's one of the major mistakes that your thirsty guy makes, is going out here and putting all of his cards on the table. And once he does that, it's game over for him, because as the man, you're supposed to be the leader, and a leader only tells people what they need to know. He does not reveal everything on the table right then and there about himself. He doesn't talk about his money. He doesn't talk about his car. He doesn't talk about anything. He just lets her know what he needs her to know. And if he's talking to her and they want to go get some coffee or something, they go and get the coffee, and then they talk some more. But he doesn't tell everything, and he does not go out here expressing feelings out here. And the thirsty guy, one of the big mistakes your thirsty guy makes is going out here and expressing feelings early on. And that's another big mistake, because again, the thirsty guy, everything about him is he's so keyed up in his emotions that he's feeling and not acting. But most women, when they see a guy out here and he's in his emotions, what they do is they see him as a weak man. So when they see a guy who's emotional and all in his feelings, that's not a good look for a guy. They look at a guy who's in his feelings, and they just look at him and go, that's not a guy I want to even deal with, because he's in his feelings and he's putting all his feelings on the table. What type of relationship can I have with this guy if he's out here spilling the beans early on? I mean, this is the first impression that he's supposed to give you, is that one, he's really nervous. Two, he's just talking too much. I mean, how is this guy representing himself as a leader if he's putting everything on the table early on and he just is running his mouth? That is one of the big mistakes that the thirsty guy makes early on, is he just doesn't see how he's looking to other people. So he's out here thinking that he's looking cool by going out here and expressing feelings, But when you go out here expressing feelings as a man, you are coming across as somebody that people, one, see as weak, and two, as somebody they just don't respect. So when they see a thirsty guy out here and he's just all eager like this, what he's doing is not, it's not putting a good first impression on not only women but also men. And he's thinking that by going out here and acting emotional, this is what women want, because he's heard these feminists and single moms say, oh, I want an emotional guy. But nobody wants to deal with an emotional guy. Most women want a guy with discipline and self-control. And a guy with discipline and self-control, when he looks at a thirsty guy, he just looks at him and shakes his head, because he understands that he's not making a good first impression. And he doesn't understand that everything that he's doing is already failed, because when that woman looked at him in the first 5 seconds of looking at him, she already saw the weakness in him, and that was practically over before it started. So a lot of these guys, the thirsty guys, they're thinking, oh, if I make these cat calls, if I go out here and I put on this display, this woman will pay attention to me. But when they look at this guy, they don't see anybody that they want to take seriously. Most women, they look at a thirsty guy and they don't see the type of guy they're looking for, which is a leader and a guy who's going to take charge. No, they see a weak dude who has no control over himself, no control over his emotions, and a guy who will act impulsively. And like Saint Nick 69 says, they see a trick and a tool, and they see a guy they're gonna use and play. And that's what they do when they see a thirsty guy. Now, your thirsty guys, they are really eager. And again, when they're caught up in their emotions, they just act on them. And what happens is, because they're acting in their emotional way, they think they're doing the right thing. So a lot of these guys, they have tunnel vision. And because they have tunnel vision, they will go out here and they will sit there and not see how they're coming across. Now you got a dude, another troll talking about high value, but I got on a Brooks Brothers shirt. What you got? So that's what we got here, Mr. So-called high value, who will be put in be hidden away and not seen ever again. Is I've got on a Brooks Brothers shirt. What have you got? So we have the thirsty guy, and again, the thirsty guy, he doesn't understand how he's coming across, and he doesn't understand that being emotional is just not a good look for a man. And he also does not understand that when you're out here and you're making these kinds of crass statements, or you're just running around, this is just making you look like a complete fool. So a lot of these thirsty guys, they're running around out here all thirsty, thinking that, oh, if I act emotional, this is what's going to impress this woman. But she's not impressed by you putting on a display like this. No, when she looks at you, she shakes her head, because she sees weakness in the thirsty guy. And the thirsty guy, he doesn't understand that when he's out here all eager and emotional like that, he is creeping this woman out, because your thirsty guy, he's just thinking, oh, if I say all this stuff, she'll be impressed. But no, she's not impressed. She looks at the nonverbal cues from these thirsty guys, and the nonverbal cues are this nervous and anxious body language. And because women are emotional, they feel that nervous and anxious body language, and that makes them become nervous because they're afraid for their own safety. And then they hear the stuff this guy starts talking about, and that makes them even more nervous and anxious because some of these guys, again, they run their mouths so much that they start going into zones with their discussions. They start talking about sex. They start talking about other sorts of things, and this stuff is coming across as real creepy because this is a person who they just met, and he's not understanding there's certain subjects you just don't talk to somebody in an initial conversation because that's not going to put a good first impression on you. So the thirsty guy, he will sit here and he will just keep talking about different subjects, not understanding that when you're in a conversation with somebody you just met, you keep it light, you keep it simple. If there's a connection, you just let the conversation flow. And if things are meant to work out, they will work out. But the thirsty guy, he doesn't understand this, so he just keeps talking and talking and talking and bringing up subjects that aren't appropriate. And then what he does is he freaks people out by the way he's not only carrying and conducting himself, but by many of the topics he's bringing up. And this is the stuff that freaks people out, especially women, when they deal with the thirsty guy. Now, after these guys have made a poor first impression on someone, they are just so caught up in their emotions about getting what they want off their chest, telling the woman that they like them, telling them that they want to go out with them. They're not thinking about reading that person's body language. I talk about this in Stop Simping, studying a person's body language and the nonverbal cues. And these guys, they're just so caught up in themselves and their feelings. They're not understanding that when you're having a conversation, you have to really make eye contact with the other person and you have to engage the other person. And as you're engaging the other person, you need to go out here and really study their body language. Hey, GBoot2786, I'm glad to have been a part of yesterday's show with Judge Joe Brown. If you guys want to check that show, I can go to G-Boot's channel. It was a really great show, 3 hours of really great discussion. And I'm going to hope that tonight's show is just as good. But you really have to study people's body language and their facial expressions when you're engaging them. And the thirsty guy, he doesn't really sit there and read people because he's caught up in his feelings about himself and his feelings about that person. He's not really studying people's body language to understand, hey, the way you're coming across is creeping people out. So that's something that your thirsty guy isn't really thinking about. He's not really thinking about the body language. He's not thinking about the person's facial expressions. He's just going on and on. And this is something that the thirsty guy isn't thinking about, and he doesn't understand. He's just thinking, oh, I talked to this person, but he doesn't understand he talked to the person in a way that turned them off. And that's all because, again, he's keyed up in his own emotions, and he's not learning how to relate to other people. And that's a big problem with the thirsty guy because he has not really been taught on how to have conversations with other people, and he's not taught to see people as just people. So this is a big problem with the thirsty guy is he doesn't really understand that, this is just another person, and if they don't like you, then it's okay. But in his mind, he's built this person up and made them into a god in some ways, because a lot of these guys, they crush on women and they even crush on guys. So a lot of these guys, they crush on people and they put them on pedestals, and that's what makes the rejections really hard for them. But they don't understand that the rejection started with the bad first impression, and the bad first impression came from him not understanding how to navigate through his emotions. Glad to see you here, Information Man. Peace to you too. but he doesn't know how to navigate through his emotions. Thank you, Seeker of Truth, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And if you want to donate to the super chat, you can do so as well. And you can also donate to the Cash App. That's also greatly appreciated. And again, navigating through your emotions is very important, and because while you're having the feelings, you aren't going to act on the feelings, and you're going to take a minute to think about what you say. And the thirsty guy, he does not really think about what he says. And because he doesn't think about what he says, he oftentimes says a whole bunch of embarrassing things because he's acting on impulse and not thinking about how what he's saying and how it's coming across to the other person. That's one of the big problems with the thirsty guy. He's so eager to get what he wants, he's not thinking about other people. So that's a major problem with your thirsty guy. And it's one of the things that leads to him alienating other people out here. Now, the other thing that your thirsty guy has a problem with after making his bad impressions is dealing with rejection, because your thirsty guy is so eager to get the attention of people that he wants that he just, when those people, after seeing his embarrassing display, he then, after being told no, just really, he cannot take no for an answer. A lot of these guys, whenever they hear something that they disagree with, they'll tune it out, similar to your Laura Winslow and Steve Urkel. Your Urkel would tune out the no's, and he would believe that it takes a lot of no to get to yes. But the whole thing is, while that statement is true, his approach to it is completely dysfunctional. Now, it does take a lot of no's to get one yes. However, a rational, critical thinking man, he's going to understand that if he talks to lots of men or talks to lots of women, that he will hear lots of no in social situations, but eventually someone will say yes if he carries and conducts himself in the proper manner, because you're going to have to deal with a lot of rejections out here. And the thirsty guy actually goes out here and creates a situation where he gets a lot of those rejections due to the way he carries and conducts himself. And one of the grave mistakes that your thirsty guy makes when he's out here is not taking no for an answer. For example, again, like Laura Winslow and Steve Urkel on Family Matters, I know I'm dating myself with this reference. He heard no from Laura Winslow and continued to pursue her, thinking that if he kept hearing the no's, he would eventually wear her down. Now, in the real world, that's called insanity, because the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. And it's completely insane for a guy to, one, go out here, express all of his emotions, put all of his cards on the table, tell some girl that he likes her, and then after hearing no, continue to go after said woman. That's completely insane, because you've already made a bad first impression and you've already put lost face in front of this woman. So you already look bad, and continuing to pester this woman is not going to wear her down. In fact, all it's going to do is give her more leverage in the situation. And when she gets more and more leverage, she's going to see you as somebody she just does not respect. So your thirsty guy, he'll be out here thinking, oh, I'm wearing her down. But the only thing he is wearing down is his reputation, because people are looking at the thirsty guy and they're seeing a weak dude. And in many cases, they're looking at this guy and seeing a pathetic dude, because this dude just does not take no for an answer. He keeps persisting, and that persistence is completely insane, because he didn't understand he failed when this woman looked at him in the first 5 seconds and wasn't interested, and he should just charge it to the game and move on. But he doesn't want to move on because in many cases, your thirsty guy, because he's so caught up in his emotions, he's got rose-colored glasses on. And because he's got rose-colored glasses on, he can't see the real picture regarding the woman he's out here trying to chase. So your thirsty guy, he will be out here trying to chase not the real woman, but the fantasy regarding the woman he has created in his mind, the fantasy he's imagined regarding her. And he wants to go out here and chase this fantasy and make it into a reality. But what he doesn't understand is he becomes his own worst enemy, because when you're an emotional guy out here who makes a bad first impression, can't take no for an answer, and then continues to persist, you are just tripping and falling over yourself. Now, in addition to the not taking no for an answer, your thirsty guy out here, he has a real problem with boundaries. Now, healthy, rational, critical thinking men, they don't have a problem with boundaries. In fact, they understand boundaries are a good thing because boundaries let them know where the line is. And when a man knows where the line is, he can set a direction for himself. And while he may not like that direction, he's going to go in that direction because he understands there are things more important to him, so as related to his intangibles of manhood, like his dignity, like his self-respect, like his self-worth, and like his freedom and his safety. Unfortunately, when it comes down to your thirsty guys, they are, again, so caught up in their emotions over a female, they don't really understand the concept of boundaries. And this is where your thirsty guy winds up getting into major trouble, is him not understanding the concept of a boundary and understanding where there's a line as related to, one, the unwritten social rules as related to male-female conduct, or even male-male conduct, and two, the boundaries as related to the law and human social interactions. Now, some of these thirsty guys, when they see somebody that they like and they want to get involved with, they will go out here and they will, after being rejected, and even before getting rejected, break boundaries. They'll go into people's jobs trying to profess their feelings. They will go to people's homes to profess their feelings. And what they don't understand is that's just breaking a boundary right there. And they will sit there thinking that this is going to impress the female. But it doesn't impress the female when you're out here and you go to her job with a dozen roses and you're just some dude out of nowhere. And it doesn't impress her when you go up to the front of her apartment with a bunch of dozen roses. That stuff from a complete stranger is just creepy. And the thirsty guy, he's thinking he's making a powerful first impression because he's trying to play to her feelings, but it's just coming across as real creepy because he's a complete stranger and he's broken boundaries as related to social interactions. Now, a guy who has been dating said woman for a couple of months, he can go and do that because he has permission to do so. He can go to her home, but he can't go to her job because that's just a place you just don't go. You don't go to people's jobs and stuff like that. But this thirsty guy, he will go out here and do this, think it's perfectly normal. And like Satanic 69 said, it's called stalking. Yeah, that's what these guys do because they don't understand that there are boundaries that you just don't cross. I mean, yes, you like this person and you think this person is cool, but there are rules that have to be followed. And these dudes don't understand what these rules are, these written and unwritten social rules. And these are the guys who, again, will go to a woman's house, go to a woman's job, and go out here and do stuff, not understanding this is not coming across in a good way. and is just coming across real creepy and real stalkerish. And instead of him making a good first impression, what she's doing is dialing 911 and getting a restraining order. And that goes counter to what this dude is thinking is going to be the impression. And that's just not, it's not a good look for him, because he doesn't understand there are rules to things that are written and unwritten. And when you break boundaries, what happens is people get creeped out. And that's when you, at the positive side of the spectrum, just have to deal with her yelling at you. To the middle of the spectrum, dudes coming to beat you up. And to the far side of the spectrum, police being called, restraining orders being filed, and you possibly getting getting locked up. And that's a big problem that your thirsty guy doesn't really understand, because he doesn't understand there are, again, written and unwritten social rules for human interactions, and there are boundaries. And again, those boundaries are there not only for her safety, but for your safety as well. Because once you go out here and break the boundaries, that's when that thirst will wind up leading to you winding up in a bad situation. And the thirsty guy, he's just, again, keyed up on his emotions, keyed up on getting what he wants, that he's not thinking critically about what he could possibly lose. So a lot of the thirsty guys out here, they're not thinking about losing their health as to getting a severe beating from a group of guys out here. They're not thinking about getting police, having them arrested. And they're not thinking about spending nights in jail where Bubba and Tiny are trading him for Little Debbie snack cakes, bags of Fritos, and your ramen noodles. He's not thinking about that. All he's thinking is, I'm going to go and get the attention of this female. And once I get her attention, everything is going to be fine. So he's not understanding that there's consequences to actions. And for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And when you go out here thirsty, the equal and opposite reaction oftentimes is negative, because you're making a bad first impression on people by just being too emotional, being too keyed up, and rushing out here and not really thinking about how you're looking, one, to other people, and how you're carrying and conducting yourself. Because a man, when he goes out here, he has to really think about how he's coming across. Because if he goes out here acting crazy, acting emotional, he's putting up an image to the world that, one, he's a really weak guy, and two, he's a guy that both men and women can get leverage and control over. This is something many of your thirsty guys really aren't thinking about as related to how they're coming across. They're sitting there thinking, oh, I got to say something, but sometimes it's best to say nothing, because the guy who has a little bit of mystery to himself and a little bit of presence, that's going to attract people to him, and it's going to leave an impression on women that this guy is somebody that I might want to talk to, because he's not saying too much. And because he's not saying too much, he's in control of himself. And when the guy is in control of himself, that's something that women find to be very attractive. A guy who's very disciplined, very in self-control, and goes out here and measures what he says, measures how he acts, because that's a guy who's showing her leadership traits. And a guy with leadership traits is attractive to women, and even to many men who are out here in the job market. They like working with those kind of guys, because when a guy has that leader, has that calm and self-control, he's a guy who's in control of himself, and he's not going to get flustered or phased out here. So he's like, I'm not phased by anything going on. If I see the attractive woman, yeah, I'm going to look, then I'm going to get back to my business and be on my way. And that kind of cool calmness, that's something that turns heads. When you see a guy who is just really in control of himself, that's something that leaves a powerful first impression on people. D Wood, yeah, I do believe Sigma males exist. That's a lone wolf, I believe. That's a guy he sits back and he lays in the cut and he just watches the action goes on and he goes about his own business. I mean, he's not really concerned too much about the competition. And that's something that a lot of guys don't know how to do, especially the thirsty guy. The thirsty guy, he doesn't understand how to carry and conduct himself. He's just so keyed up in his feelings about who he wants to be around. He doesn't understand that he's not understanding how bad he's looking with his behavior. He doesn't understand when he's out here and he's behaving a certain way, he's leaving a bad first impression on people. Because when people look at a thirsty dude and they see him with no self-control, just out here, some of them, they just asking the same woman 2 and 3 times over. Some of them going out here, spending money, trying to impress her. Some of them buying attachments. Some of them going out here buying expensive clothes, buying cars and stuff. Some of them begging and pleading with somebody who has said no. They look at that dude and they don't see a guy who is in control of himself. They don't see a leader. They see a follower. Or even worse, they see a guy who can be easily manipulated and controlled. And this is another thing the thirsty guy isn't really thinking about, is how he's coming across to people near and far. Because when you go out here and you participate in certain behaviors, you are sending a message to people on how you should be treated. And the thirsty guy sends a message to people on how he should be treated. And I don't need to take you seriously. I can do whatever I want to you, and you don't matter because you are so eager for attention and approval that you'll do anything and you will sacrifice intangibles as related to your character and your manhood, such as your dignity, your self-respect, and your self-worth. And you'll sacrifice these important internal things in order to get somebody else's attention and approval. So the thirsty guy doesn't understand that when he goes out here and does this, he makes himself appear to be a second best man. And you really don't want to go out here making yourself look second best. You want to leave powerful first impression on people so that when they look at you, they go, this is a guy I can take seriously, and I'm taking him seriously because of the way he's carrying and conducting himself. And he's the one taking the lead and saying, hey, I'm not going to go out here all eager and run around and behind people. No, I'm going to lay back in the cut and follow and not be following, but just be leading. And I'm going to observe the action and study the actions of people. And that's something the thirsty guy never does. He'll just see somebody who has a certain aesthetic, and that's the thing that will just be the thing that has him chasing behind said woman, or even chasing behind certain guys who have certain personalities and certain presence. They will chase behind someone. And Zken, I wrote the book Stop Simping, and everything in here is in the book. So I don't know how they would disagree. It's in the book, and it's in Stop Simping, so it's in the book. And I wrote the book on simping, as related to dating and relationships, and I also wrote it as related to the job. And I wanted people to understand that this thirsty guy, he doesn't understand how bad he's looking all around. And your thirsty guy, his eagerness, it becomes something that people take and they use against him, because when they see him all eager like that, they just see a sucker and they take advantage of him because they know he's eager, they know he's emotional, and they know he's not thinking about the big picture. he's in his feelings, and a man is at his weakest when he's in his feelings. Men are logical, and we are at our strongest when we're thinking critically. And a thirsty guy is at his weakest when he's out here feeling. And when you're feeling, that's where the woman has more strength, because this is her domain. Her women are primarily emotional, and they go out here, and because they're emotional, when they see an emotional guy, they see weakness, and they see a tool they can go out here and take advantage of. Now, your thirsty guy is not only a guy who just looks weak, but he's also a threat in many cases. Like I stated before, he doesn't understand boundaries, and because he doesn't understand boundaries, he winds up crossing lines he should not cross. So one example of the thirsty guy out here, he will cross a line as related to, again, the example I gave, going to a woman's house, going to a woman's job, going to her car thinking this is all cute, not understanding this is creepy behavior, and you don't do no stuff like that. Usually, if you want to meet a lady, she will let you know through a nonverbal cue. Usually, if a female is interested, she will give you a smile, or she'll give you a look, or she'll just sometimes just come up to you and start talking about a subject. But women have nonverbal cues that they will let you know that they're interested in you. And when you see those nonverbal cues, you know that it's okay to engage. And other things that you can also know is studying with your instincts. And again, thirsty guys they don't really connect well on instinct, because they're always impulsive and they're going on feelings. But your instincts will tell you things about someone. And now your instincts are, again, they're like Spider-Man's spider sense. It's like something that is around you. It's like an energy that's around you, and it's something that gives you a sense of, okay, this person is into me. I can feel a connection somewhere. So a guy on instinct, well, he could be sitting there having a conversation with a lady, and all of a sudden he just knows that, okay, this lady is into me, and he'll know to go a certain way with the conversation. And if things work out, you may possibly get a phone number, and you might possibly get a chance to further go out here and have another conversation in another place. But they don't try to do everything all at once like the thirsty guy. They understand there's steps to certain things. I mean, you want to get to know somebody, but the thirsty guy, he just wants the fantasy to come true, not understanding that in the real world, people take time to get to know each other, and there have to be certain things between two people. There has to be a connection, there has to be chemistry, there has to be attraction. And again, your instincts are going to tell you these things. Unfortunately, the thirsty guy is so caught up in his lust that he cannot really tune in to those internal sensors around him, that energy, that aura around him, that spiritual energy. He can't really tune into the spiritual and really feel those vibes. He can't feel that because all he thinks about is, I want to get this fantasy and make it happen. But the reality is, he's putting himself out there to be a tool to be taken advantage of, because when you're too eager, people can sense that eagerness and that thirst. And if people are not really good people, they're going to go out here and take advantage of you, because they're going to sense that eagerness, they're going to sense that nervousness, and they're going to sense these things about you, and they're going to go, okay, this guy looks really weak. He looks like a total tool. And they're sitting there thinking that this is going to go out here and work, but this is not working at all, because you're so focused on what you want. You're not really looking at the big picture. You're not looking at the pasted on facial expression. You're not looking at the rolled and glazed eyes. You're not looking at the hands of a person. These are all things you have to look at and study. When you start to study body language, you really start to see, okay, this person is not engaging with me. This person is not connecting with me. And this is something people, they're not really understanding, especially thirsty guys. They really don't understand how to read these types of things. And this is what, because they're so busy trying to get what they want, they can't see how they're actually ironically losing what they want. Now, your thirsty guy, again, he breaks boundaries. And one of the worst things about a thirsty guy is, as he's breaking boundaries, he not only participates in creepy stalker behavior, he also gets violent with other men. Now, your thirsty guy, a lot of them come from these single mother households. And because they come from single mother households, what happens with your thirsty guy is he starts to get that female frame of thinking. And with that female frame of thinking, what happens with your thirsty guy is he goes out here, and when he sees other men, he starts to think he has to compete with other men. And this is something I've experienced ever since I was 12 years old. And it's something that used to baffle me when I was a boy. But now that I understand what it is your thirsty guy, he is afraid of competition. Now, your thirsty guy, he wants to go out here, and he knows that he's all in his emotions, but he's afraid that other guys are going to leave a stronger first impression on females. So what your thirsty guy will do is try to eliminate competition by participating in what I call dysfunctional behavior. And your thirsty guy, when he sees other men who he's intimidated by, what your thirsty guy will do is try to find ways to eliminate competition he perceives that will be a threat to him in social circles. So your thirsty guy, he will see girls that he likes, and he'll see guys around with stronger masculine energy, stronger masculine presence, stronger confidence. And what he will do is go out here and he'll start asking guys questions like, do you like girls? Do you have a girlfriend? Again, these questions are not about the guy. It's about trying to eliminate the other guy. It's about so he can go and segue into his shaming language and try to make the other guy feel bad. And again, he's all about feelings. And what he wants to do is, one, hurt the other guy's feelings. And what he also wants to do is eliminate those guys. That's right, T-Mac. They are cock blockers, the thirsty guys. And your thirsty guy, he wants to, again, eliminate those guys. He wants to block that other guy from getting with these females. He wants to make them look bad. He wants to put a negative first impression on those females by trying to find a way to clown that other guy, make that other guy look bad, because he wants to be seen as the center of attention. And when he does this, he shows everybody how insecure he really is, because your thirsty guy, again, he's really emotional, but he's also extremely insecure, and he fears that if these other guys are out here who have, again, stronger masculine energy, a lot more confidence, and are in many ways have more swagger, those guys are going to get the attention of the females that he wants. And what he wants to do is pull those guys off the board so he can have access to all the women. This is how delusional many of your thirsty guys are. They want to go out here and make the other guy look like a bad guy in their eyes. They're thinking if they make this guy have a negative first impression, what will happen is that the women will get turned off. But what usually happens is, if you're an alpha male or you're a sigma male lone wolf, you just brush it off and keep going on. And many cases, some of these guys can also check Mr. Thirsty at the door, because they already see this guy is already scared, because when a guy asks another guy if he has a girlfriend or if he likes girls, that's a sign of weakness right there. And another sign of weakness that a thirsty guy does is talking about, oh, I'm going to hook you up with my friend over here. This is another thing that your thirsty guys like to do. They like to call themselves playing matchmaker, thinking that if I play the matchmaker, I can get this guy off the board and I'll get easy access to said women that I like by putting him with another woman. But what happens with Mr. Thirsty is all of this usually backfires on him because most of the things that he's trying to do, most guys already can see right through him. And most other guys out here, they're saying, look, I can go out here and get my own women on my own terms, and I don't need you to go out here and do this. And this guy, as he's trying to do this and trying to call himself clearing a path for easy access, he winds up tripping and stumbling over his own feet. And that's what happens to your thirsty guy. He's so busy trying to get in other people's business to get them off the board in some cases that he winds up, as he's creating that lane for himself, tripping and falling, because once he makes that awkward first impression on these females and even some of the guys who they're trying to be friends with in social circles, they wind up embarrassing themselves and the big picture because they're so busy trying to get up in other people's business that they wind up going out here and making a mess of their own business. So your thirsty guy, he will run out here. He will try to call himself, trying to block other guys, trying to cock block them, and trying to do things like trying to hook guys up and trying to find out about other guys' dating and relationship statuses. And what he will do in his thirst to try to remove people from the board so he can get access to the larger pool is he will wind up tripping and falling before anything happens, leaving a bad first impression on everyone and making himself look like a complete laughingstock in most social circles. So your thirsty guy will sit there and think, oh, this is going to work out. I'll get these guys off the board. And again, they're competing with men, but men are not competing with them because most men out here, they don't compete for the attention of a female. They understand that there are more men out here than men. And if they go out here and they have their confidence together, they have their resources together, they can go out here and attract the attention of women without even trying. They can even attract the attention of other professionals out here as related to their career because that man is taking a leadership role. And because he's taking a leadership role, he's not going out here and trying to eliminate guys off the board. He's not trying to take people out. He's like, I don't need to worry about other guys. I'm not competing with anybody because I'm in my lane. And if I'm in my lane, then I'm doing my thing. And if people see me doing my thing, they're either going to be attracted to what I'm doing and want to be a part of the program, or they don't. And that's how men compete out here. A man never looks at another man and what he's doing. No, when a man is out here and he's competing, he's like, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to bring my A game to the table. And if I see another dude doing something and it's kind of cool, then I may get inspired and I might try a little thing here or there, but I'm not worried about that next man. I'm not concerned about that competition because I know that what I got is good. I believe in what I've got, and I trust in God to be able to, if there are opportunities, I'm going to use those opportunities to take myself to the next level. So the guy who's out here and he's got confidence, he's not worried about other guys. He's not concerned with other guys. He's not trying to go out here and directly compete. He's like, look, this is how I compete. I bring my best to the table. If the other dude brings his best to the table, then that's fine. But I'm not worried about this other man out here. But your thirsty guy, he's worried about the next man because he is so caught up in his emotions that all he does is think about other people And again, that goes back to his insecurities and his feelings of inadequacy about himself. Your thirsty guy feels very insecure, very inadequate about himself, and he's very scared of having to go out here and put himself out there. So he thinks that if he goes out here and eliminates another guy, this will help him be able to move further up the ladder. But what happens is, again, he trips over himself, and the thirsty guy, he winds up losing in the end, because the thirsty guy, again, he has no male figures around to teach him how to compete like a man, and he has no other men out here to model manhood for him, so he can understand that when a guy has stuff going on, he doesn't have to worry about other people, and he doesn't have to worry about going out here and trying to impress other people, because that's another trait the thirsty guy has that really messes him up, is he's always putting other people first and never thinking about himself. I talk about this in Stop Simping as well. And this is a book you definitely want to pick up, because I go in depth on this subject, but he's always putting other people in front of him. Always putting other people in front of him, but he doesn't understand that a guy who goes out here and makes a good first impression, he's not thinking about how, he's not out here trying to actively trying to impress people. He just is who he is. And when people see him just being himself, that leaves a powerful first impression on people. So he's not out here worried about the next man. He's not out here worried about trying to impress people. And this is one of the things that really messes up your thirsty dude, is he wants to go out here and make this impression by put with all of his emotions on the table, telling everybody that what he knows. And this makes him look extremely weak at the end of the day. And it makes him somebody who nobody takes seriously. Now, another aspect of the thirsty guy as related to competition is something I see going on in a lot of these live streams where we have these panels. Now, I've seen a lot of these live streams with these gender wars things or these relationship things. And a lot of these guys, they go on for 7 and 8 hours, and they go out here trying to impress, especially if there's a female member on the panel. They will sit there and they will get emotional, and they are actually showing you weakness. They will sit there, they'll go into ad hominem attacks, they'll go into name calling, they'll go into back and forths. And when you see guys doing that, that is thirsty behavior. And thirsty behavior, when you see it out here, what happens is these guys are going into these ad hominem attacks, they're going into back and forths, and they're doing that because they want to impress either females online or females on a panel. And David Carroll has talked about that. But when I heard about it, I thought to myself, that's thirsty behavior. And again, when you have a thirsty guy and he's on a panel trying to impress women, it's just coming from a position of weakness. Because when you have a thirsty guy and he's attacking another man on a panel, that's some adolescent junior high school behavior, and it's not impressing anybody either in cyberspace who is watching said panels, or it's not impressing even the women who are on those panels. Those women, they look at that guy and they just see weakness, they see lack of discipline, lack of self-control. And when a guy can't control himself, again, it leaves a bad first impression on the women, and it also leaves a bad first impression on men, because most people in social circles, when they see a guy who cannot control his emotions, cannot really look at how he's presenting himself in a public space, they don't see him as somebody who they should take seriously or consider for opportunities. Because a guy who cannot navigate through his emotions and say, yes, I have these feelings, but I'm not going to act on those feelings, that's a guy I don't want to be around me, because this guy could either possibly embarrass me in a social situation, or if I have a business, embarrass my company by participating in some out of control behavior. And this, again, is not a good look for a lot of these guys who go on these live streams for 6, 7, 8 hours. You're just going into ad hominems and going into back and forth where you're calling people names, and you don't understand that your thirsty behavior is not leaving a good impression on people. You're sitting there being emotional, going into name calling, but professionals don't go into name calling. They understand that when you get on a platform like a YouTube or a Facebook, you have to have a professional presence, and you really want to leave a strong first impression on people by not going into ad hominems and going into name calling and going into personal attacks on people's character, similar to what this troll was trying to do as related to making attacks on me a couple of minutes ago as related to this high value man gimmick. Now, I did not engage that individual because, again, I understand that in cyberspace, you have to maintain a professional image and you have to maintain a professional presence, because when a man is in control of himself, it leaves a powerful first impression on people, because that man is showing that he has leadership skills. And if he can go out here and control himself in a situation, then people are going to trust him to be able to navigate a course as related to a business venture or a social venture. And that's something that many guys aren't really thinking about when they go on and do these live streams and they go into these personal attacks as related to these gender war and relationship topics. Once they start getting their emotions involved and start getting heated, what happens is they don't really think about how this is going to come across to people. They're not really understanding, hey, I'm looking bad here talking about this guy's mother. I'm really looking bad talking about how many women this guy doesn't have. I look bad, and I'm not understanding that this junior high school behavior from a 40-plus-year-old man is not a good look. They're just thinking, oh, I'm trying to impress these females online who are in cyberspace, but you're leaving a very negative impression, because what really impresses people, as related to a man, is a man remaining calm and being able to handle different pressures and not getting to emotion to the point where he's letting his emotions fly too far off. I mean, a guy can get angry if he's trying to make a point here or there, but he has to learn how to control that anger, and he has to also learn how to control his feelings, because some people will try to get a rise out of you, like that troll did as related to the high value man a couple of minutes ago, who I just put into limbo. I wasn't going to get into it with him, because no self-respecting man is going to get into it with anybody out here. They understand that there's more important things than getting into a back and forth with someone, because, again, a man understands his face is one of the most important things about him, and to lose face is a very, very bad thing. So that's one of the things the thirsty dude really doesn't understand. He's just trying to get this woman's attention, but he doesn't understand that there's positive attention and there's negative attention. He's just thinking attention, and he's like a small child, and that's what happens to your thirsty dude, and that's why he winds up in embarrassing situations. And these are situations that could possibly be avoided. Now, you can understand a guy having thirst issues at 12 or 13 or 14, but usually if there's a father involved, he's going to pull his son to the side and say, son, this isn't how you conduct yourself out here, and you don't do this type of behavior, because this is just, it's not a good look. Because when you go out here and you're making all these thirsty comments and running up on people, this is not going to get you where you want to go. It's just going to creep people out, and it's going to turn people away from you. that's what a man is going to sit down and tell his son. He's going to say, son, this is not coming across right. I mean, you're creeping people out. You just can't run up on people. You just can't race up on people. I mean, there's a way to approach people, and you're the way you're doing it, because the way a thirsty guy does, he just runs up on people, and then when he hears no, he gets either tries to do more of the same, which is insanity, or he's saying all sorts of stupid things, and this is also not helping him, because I've seen guys who are thirsty, when they get rejected, they start calling women B's and MFs and H's, and that's not going to help you, because all you're doing is proving the point that you're creeping out this woman, and you're creeping out other women because of the way you're behaving, and you're also creeping out other guys who are looking at you and going, I don't want to be a friend with this guy. This guy is creepy. I don't want to get involved with this dude. He don't know how to carry himself. He don't know how to conduct himself. And this guy is making himself a liability to people, and he doesn't understand how he's coming across, because he's got tunnel vision, and he needs to get open to a bigger, broader picture of reality, because that picture of reality will show him how he's coming across. And your thirsty guy, again, he's really eager, but you have to temper that eagerness with discipline. And when you temper that eagerness with discipline, what happens is you will wind up seeing a bigger picture. You will see things more objectively. And when you see things more objectively, then you can start to notice many of the details you were missing from the tunnel vision, because when you start to see the bigger picture as related to women in social situations, and even men in social situations like job interviews, you'll start learning how to, one, relax, and then two, learning how to just study people, study body language, study facial expressions, study nonverbal cues, study the energy around a person, and you'll learn how to study these different things, and you'll see how a conversation is going. And this is something that your thirsty guy, he has no really understanding about, but a guy who has good social skills, he will study many of these things, and he'll start reading people and be like, I'm feeling this energy that this person is into me, or I'll feel the energy that this person isn't engaging me. And I'm feeling this energy, and when I feel the energy, that'll tell me whether to keep going or whether to shut things down. And this is something somebody with good social skills will know how to do. They'll sit there and be like, okay, I feel this person's energy, this person's into me. Let me see where this is going to go. And things will flow, but you have the guy, the thirsty guy, he won't be able to read the energy, and he'd be like continuing to push, where you're seeing this scared look on this woman's face, this frowned up face. He's still pushing, or somebody will throw him a signal like they're interested, and what he'll do is he'll abruptly end the conversation because it's not going the way he thought it should go. So he's not really studying the energy and the flow, because when people talk to each other, there's spiritual energy flowing, and those vibes let you know whether you're connecting. And on an instinctive level, you're knowing, okay, this person is really into me, so we can continue to engage, or I can set up something where we can go do something. And that's something that the thirsty guy doesn't know how to do, because he's so busy, again, with the tunnel vision, keyed up on what he wants. He can't understand the process or the goals that are related to it. So he can't understand that in an initial conversation, all you're doing is just talking to the person, finding out basic stuff. And if they want to go on, they'll let you know if they want to go on, or if they're interested at all. And again, he doesn't understand these things because he's never been taught about how to be social. He's never been taught about body language, nonverbal cues. He's just taught, oh, I see women, I want to get with women, I want cool points from other guys with women, I want to be cool. He's never been taught, hey, there's a process to this. You have to get discipline, you have to get self-control, and you have to learn these basics first. And again, the thirsty guy, in a lot of cases, he can be helped if people intervene on his behalf. I mean, he's not as gone as the psycho simp or the killer simp. He's a guy who can be helped by a book like a Stop Simpin'. He's a guy who can be helped by a book like The Man Crisis. He's a guy who can be helped by guys like Mad Voodoo Man, aka the Iceman. He's a guy who can be helped because the thirsty guy, if you get to him, especially when he's young, and you teach him the social skills that he needs, then he can learn how to carry and conduct himself in social situations and not make a fool out of himself. And that's one of the things about the thirsty guy that is a positive is many of these guys, they can get help early on if you catch them early. If a man pulls him to the side and talks to him, he can be helped. But there are guys who just don't understand this and they continue to think that these approaches work because some female predator is taking advantage of them. They think because they got this attention from a woman, this is the way it's supposed to go, or they got a job or something like that. But if you can get a thirsty guy early on, you can possibly quench his thirst and teach him the discipline he needs in order to get out here and be able to navigate social situations. Because in order to be in a social situation, a guy has to have a solid composure. He has to have discipline. He has to have self-control. He cannot let his emotions dictate how he carries himself in social situations, because when you let your emotions dictate to your social situations, what happens is people they look at you, they see a weak guy, and they see a guy they can easily take advantage of. And your thirsty guy, he's sitting there thinking, again, I'm going to rush in here and show how eager I am. And this eagerness is going to impress people. But that eagerness, all it does is show people how much of a tool you are. And what many female predators and many male predators do is they take that thirsty guy's eagerness and they use it to take advantage of him. And they use it to go out here and take this guy either for a large amount of resources as related to dinners or drinks, or taking him to go pay rent and stuff like that. Or this guy winds up, if he goes out in the job market and he's real eager, bosses will have him doing all their work plus the work of other people. So being too eager, being too thirsty is a very bad thing for a guy to have. And a thirsty guy's big problems, again, have to do with him not understanding the written and unwritten social rules for how people are supposed to be treated, not understanding how to carry and conduct himself in social situations, and not understanding where the boundaries are as related to social relationships. And that's a major one, because when you understand what boundaries are, then you can set boundaries for how you have relationships with people. And when you set boundaries, what that does is let people know how you will allow them to treat you. And this is something your thirsty guy really doesn't understand, is that you have to set boundaries for how you are treated. You can't be so eager to get acceptance from other people that you're willing to sacrifice things like your dignity, which is how you see your value, your self-respect, and how you're going to be treated, and your self-worth, which is your value of self. You can't sacrifice those things to get the attention of others. But your thirsty guy, he will go out here and sacrifice those things because he thinks that there's something more. But no, the real value is in understanding your value as a man. And many thirsty guys never really understand their value as men, because some thirsty guys come from female-headed households, and others come from households with fathers who just don't teach them or model male life skills for them. But these are essential skills, because while many boys have a simp phase where they're trying to figure stuff out, they really need guidance on this, because being a thirsty guy makes you a target, and it also makes you vulnerable. And that's something many guys don't understand about being too thirsty, is when you run out here too eager, that again makes you a target for female and male predators. And these female and male predators, when they see a weak guy, they're going to try to capitalize on him, and they're going to try to use that guy to be able to get what they want at his expense. And this could really go to certain extremes, because you'll have your weak guy out here, and what will happen to him is he will go out here being so eager, and what will happen is he'll get set up to get robbed. He'll be set up to get killed, because all he's thinking about is getting some sexual attention from a woman, not understanding this woman is setting him up for robbery. And you'll have these guys out here who are thirsty. They'll put on these expensive attachments like iPhones or Marmot jackets. Like one article I read, a guy bought a Marmot jacket for $700. The girl paid some attention to him, and he got set up for a robbery and murdered here in New York. And these are the kind of situations that thirsty guys can run into, and they run into them because they're just too eager. And if they just had the guidance of another man to sit there and talk to them and say, look, you don't need to be so eager. I mean, if this person wants your attention, they're not going to be asking you to for their approval. They're going to want to do things on neutral terms or your terms, usually on your terms, because they want to see you being a leader. So they're not going to be running out here, have you running out here behind them. They're going to want to see what type of leader you are. And this is something that the thirsty guy doesn't understand, because he's so busy chasing what he wants that he doesn't understand that there's a process to things. And usually most guys, they will take their time to learn the process. And yes, they'll make mistakes here and there. They'll dust themselves off. But as they're going, they're learning. But the thirsty guy, in some cases, he's so busy trying to get what he wants that he doesn't learn the lessons. And he winds up falling over and over again unless he gets an intervention from an older male, like an older man, or a seasoned man, like an older brother. If he doesn't get that type of knowledge, he just winds up continuing to think being thirsty is the way. But being thirsty is not the way. And all a thirsty guy does is he winds up making a big mess of his life, and his thirst winds up leading him into traps like what we see on places like OnlyFans, where a lot of these thirsty guys go, looking at these pictures of these women and paying all this money in for the subscriptions for these pictures, which is absolutely ridiculous, because you can see thousands of pictures on the internet for free, and you don't have to spend a dime on any of them. But these guys think that they create a covert contract in their mind that this is going to be some sort of road to a relationship if they pay subs for this woman, or they look at her pictures or her videos, not understanding that this woman on OnlyFans or Instagram already either has a boyfriend, is married, has kids, and in some cases may possibly be a lesbian. These guys will sit here and think they've got a shot by going on here and spending this money, and they're caught up in their lust. They can't see the real person, and the real person is a predator, and they're just trying to take advantage of them. Same thing on these Twitch live streamers. They'll sit there, and because they're caught up in their lust, they're dropping these super chats on there, and they're dropping all this money thinking that, oh, this is because this woman said my name, then she really likes me. And again, that's the thirsty guy in his emotions with no discipline and self-control. And because he has no discipline and self-control, he winds up getting taken advantage of by female predators on websites like OnlyFans and websites like Twitch, who see him and see a tool they can use to enrich themselves at his expense. And sadly, this is what happens to thirsty guys out here. They wind up getting played like this, and it doesn't have to happen if they could just get an intervention, get somebody to talk to them and like I'm doing right now with this deconstruction of the thirsty guy, because I don't want to see guys getting taken advantage of by predators like this. And when I see guys who just don't have that, they just, a lot of them are young, naive. They haven't really been out in the world. They're caught up in their emotions. And they're just thinking, oh, look at this picture, and this picture matches an aesthetic that meets their preference. What happens is they just go, oh, that's a light-skinned chick, she's hot, or that's a goth chick, she's hot. They're just lusting after the picture or the video. They don't know anything about this person. They just go out here thirsty, not understanding that you're putting yourself in a situation where you're putting yourself at risk. So that's one of the things that the thirsty guy doesn't understand. He's caught up in the visuals, and he's caught up in the tunnel vision of what he wants. He's not thinking about, look, let me take a minute to pull back. Let me take a minute to, again, look at those things like nonverbal cues, look at body language. Let me look at the person. And if they're on a site like OnlyFans and they're in their drawers or they're doing these sexual acts, that's somebody you really don't want to deal with, because this person is basically saying that they're a prostitute. So why would I want to deal with this type of person? Because this is not a person you want to build with. This is a person who wants to get paid for being basically a stripper. So why do I want to deal with this type of person? But again, your guy who's out here, he's so caught up in his lust that all he's thinking about is, I just want to get the attention of this woman because she has a certain look. And again, that's thirst. And the thirst is, again, based on emotions that are stimulated on lust, but you have to temper that with discipline. And a lot of guys, they need to learn how to do that, because once you learn how to do that, then you're going to be able to see a woman from a totally different perspective. And that perspective is one that will help you be able to have healthy relationships with women. And it'll also keep you safe, because you're going to go out here and you're going to, as you're engaging people, you're going to set that boundary. And you're going to set that boundary because you're going to say, hey, I don't know anything about this person just yet. Let me just listen to this person and find out what they're about. And if the energy is right, then maybe I'll try to make another move here or there. But I'm going to take my time, because this, as a leader, I'm setting the tone and I'm setting the terms. I'm not going to rush into something, because this is about what I'm trying to do is, again, figure out where things are going to go. I'm not going to rush in. And your thirsty guy, he wants to rush in. And when he rushes in, he oftentimes rushes into dangerous situations, because he doesn't take that time to assess a situation. He doesn't take that time to assess a person. And he doesn't take that time. And that's what leads to him getting a target on his back, because he's so caught up, again, in what he wants as related to either a visual aesthetic or a idea he has regarding whoever he wants to engage in, that he doesn't understand that you need to take a minute to sit down and listen to this person. You need to take a minute to watch them in their actions. And you need to take a minute to check things out before you rush in. And that's something your thirsty guy, he doesn't really do. And again, it leads to him in being put in dangerous situations. But a healthy, critical thinking man, whenever he engages someone, he's going to look at a person's face. He's going to look at a person's body language. He's going to really study these nonverbal cues. And he's going to do this. And he's also going to assess that energy and feel that vibe. And if things ain't feeling right, he's going to try to find a way to move out of that conversation and move on. So these are social skills that most men have, but thirsty guys don't get. And your thirsty guys, they are extremely, they need a lot of help, and they need a lot of guidance. Glad to see you here, Soul Provider. And I really wanted to do this stream because a lot of the guys, they don't understand the dangers of being too thirsty. And thirst is not a good thing. It's good to have a passion or an interest, but when you're thirsty, you get blind, you get tunnel vision. And when you get tunnel vision, what happens is you don't see the dangers that are all around you. And that's why it's important to have really good objective, critical thinking and as related to social relationships. I mean, you have to really think when you're involved with people, because sometimes you'll have females come up to you. Like when I was in high school, I saw a thing where a female would bring herself and her friend, and I would know, okay, this person really isn't serious, because if you're bringing your friend along to talk to me, that's a red flag. Because if you're serious, you're going to try to find a minute to talk to that man in private. And that's another thing that the thirsty guy doesn't look at. He'll sit there and have the woman sitting there with her friend and talking about, oh, could you buy me and my friend something? It's like, no, you don't do that, because that shows that she's not really interested. It shows that you're just using you. And you have to understand these situations, because these things are all red flags, but they don't come across to the thirsty guy, because he's just happy to get attention. But again, he doesn't understand not every person paying you attention is paying you good attention. So you never want to be too thirsty. You never want to be too eager. You always want to have some discipline and some self-control when you're in a social situation. And I know it can be tough for a lot of people like introverts and people with social anxiety disorder, but you have to have discipline when you're out here, and you have to have your head on straight when you're out here. And you always keep your calm when you're out here, because when you're in control of yourself, that leaves a powerful first impression on people. And having that powerful first impression is the thing that leads to people taking you seriously and seeing you as somebody that they will respect. And that's the other thing about the thirsty guy has to understand, is a man has to have respect for himself, because if he doesn't have respect for himself, what he's going to do is send a message to everybody that he's somebody they don't need to regard. He's somebody they don't really need to care about. And he's not somebody that really matters, because the person who shows how much you matter is you. And the thirsty guy doesn't understand this, because he's looking to try to find acceptance and approval from people, not understanding that if you don't value you, others won't value you. And D Wood makes a good point. Thirsty women aren't appealing either. And that's a good point, because when a woman is too thirsty and tries too hard, that can be a turnoff to a guy. And that is not a good look either. When you have thirsty women, it's just that they don't really listen. They want what they want. And again, that comes from insecurity. It's not confidence. Yes, a woman can like a guy and she can let a guy know that she likes him, but she's going to, again, have a line where she says, okay, this is as far as I'm going to go. And if I let this guy know, then I'm going to go but so far. I'm not going to be sacrificing dignity and self-respect and giving away their intangibles of womanhood. So that's the thing that they need to understand as things. What's going on, Big Money Iceman? I'm glad to see you here. I'm talking about these thirsty guys and deconstructing the thirsty guy. But a lot of guys, they don't really understand the whole concept of being thirsty. They don't understand how it's a bad look for them. And they don't understand how this just is embarrassing for them. So I'm hoping everybody learns something about the thirsty guy and this deconstruction of the thirsty guy. And you can learn a bit more about the thirsty guy by picking up my book, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And this is a book that has transformed thousands of men's lives over the world. There's a whole chapter in there about thirsty guys. And I really wanted to help guys out here with this topic, because I see a lot of thirsty dudes out here, and I don't want to see those guys to get taken advantage of, like many guys did when I was a kid. So I'm hoping that this stream and the book will help you out. And I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's live stream. But before I go, I'm going to hang around for a few more minutes. I'm hoping, you guys will go over to the Cash App and drop a donation over there, so I can continue doing more men's issue streams like this one, or donate to the Patreon so I can continue to pay for the internet and be able to pursue other book projects like the ones I just talked about. John Haynes Taking Care of Business, which is coming out in March in paperback and Kindle format. So thank you, Big Money Iceman. Because I see so many guys out here trying to call themselves impressing women, trying to do things with this thirsty behavior, and all they do is embarrass themselves. And I want guys to understand that this thirstiness, it doesn't make you look good. The catcalling, the chasing, it makes you look really bad, and it really makes you look weak. And all you're doing is putting a target on your back that other female predators and male predators see. So it's just not a good look for people out here. And the thirsty guy, he doesn't understand how he's embarrassing himself. So I'm gonna get ready to wrap up tonight's stream. Again, I hope you guys learned something from it, and I thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream. And I'm trying to get some sales on my SJS Direct book, so I'm hoping you guys put in a pre-order for John Haynes Taking Care of Business, or ISIS Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, or you pick up some of the 2020 books that came out last year and are now available in paperback and Kindle format, like Easting Blast from the Past, John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, Eternal Night, and ISIS, The Main Event. These were the 4 books of the SJS Direct 2020 catalog. You find all these books in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com. And I really would appreciate if you guys headed over to Amazon to pick up these books. They are positive African-American fantasy fiction, and they are just great fun reads and great fun. So I have a lot of great books on Amazon, and I really would hope you guys will just try them out. Thanking you all for coming out to tonight's stream, and I hope you'll be there for next week's stream. Have a good night.